I didn't have anything against it, but I just thought I want to carve my own path and find what I want to do. And it was the thing that I was groomed for without any of us realizing it, my family included. I grew up on sets. My parents had acting classes my whole life that I went to.
Be better.
There's actually a clip going around, I don't know if you've seen it on Instagram, where you two are in the street and it's where you really kiss for the first time, and she's, sort of showing you, like pulling you into her and showing you how to embrace her.
Yeah.
And people are loving that.
Yeah, look,
Seeing the collaborative effort.
I don't think people realize how involved she was in this movie. And she's a producer on the film.
Adapting it and growing it and expanding on it. But Colleen was incredible in saying, like, okay, the book is one thing and the movie also is another thing. And we have to make sure that we're not just making a replica of the book if it isn't always the best and most authentic choice for the moment. And I think because of that, it's a very true adaptation of the book. Like, it is very, very, very true to the book, and in so many ways. And it also, at the same time, can have an authenticity and a life to it that is even outside of the book slightly, because everybody came to it given the authorship to bring the most honest performance and the most honest interpretation and the most honest pieces of themselves as storytellers to the film.
Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. I love this topic. I'm so invested. I just spent probably 6 hours reading through court records, documents, talking to Chat GPT to get their opinion. Does anyone use Chat GPT just to get an insight? I still do a lot of sleuthing myself, but I'm really into chat to ask specific questions on topics I may not necessarily know. But I also spent a bunch of time reading through different answers from all the different parties that are involved in these lawsuits. Yesterday, we talked about some of the issues that came up when it comes to Blake Lively, and that she's, one, not an employee of Wayfair. Two, she is, because she's not an employee and she is used a loan out agency and was under a contract, unless she violated or that contract was violated, she really has no grounds to sue, because all of the issues were resolved with the document that they all agreed to, the 17 protections. She doesn't have grounds to now go back and state that she was harassed and they did nothing about it, because the very document that they all signed would state that they took measures to make her comfortable. But something I noticed as I was going through these various answers were a couple things. One of Blake Lively's claims in her 17 point had to do with COVID. And I don't know if you're aware, but in 2023, life was back to normal. We live in a world now where COVID just exists, and it's just kind of like this unfortunate thing we all have to deal with. It's like another harsher variation of the flu. I've had it, I think, 3 times, and I hate it every time I get it. But in 2023, under the law, like, there was nothing that Wayfair had to do to ensure compliance on a set. And it's ironic that Blake would bring up COVID precautions on a set when all the spring she was at Taylor Swift concerts. She was at Wrexham in March of 2023 in a packed stadium watching a soccer game with no mask. She was in London and UK at the Wrexham Stadium only days before she claimed to have been exposed to COVID on set without a mask. And the probability that she got COVID from anyone on set or she picked it up herself, you can't put that on Wayfair. So the COVID claim is just a mild another exaggeration of her to try to enforce something that she wasn't even living by in her own right, in her own life. Blake Lively, in her complaint, alleges that Sony and Wayfair signed this contract, that the 17-point rider agreement to her contract, but Sony didn't sign anything. Sony was not was only a distributor. They were not the studio that was making the film. So they really had no reason to sign anything. They had no contract with Miss Lively. But I noticed something about Sony when it came to her demands. And it's pretty clear that Sony was on to that her November of 2023. This is actually my birthday 2 years ago when this email was sent. It says, took a look at this following our conversation. No changes in mind from what we discussed last evening. Items 1 through 10, 15, and 17 are basically just yes, of course. Interestingly, I'm surprised that you don't already have a negotiated rider in place given the subject matter and content in the book, or am I misinterpreting her comment? Items 11 through 13, I'd want to hear more about what is underlying and what she's hoping to accomplish, respectfully, of course, and hope that some combination of the studio representative and the empowerment of Alex, presumably, whatever that means, again, hoped for clarification, might mitigate the need to engage an additional A-level producer. Item 14 is a question mark. It sounds like she approved the engaged stunt double. And item 16, I guess I'm confused about this one as well, and why the engagement of day players has found its way on this list. Perhaps some of the upcoming sensitive scenes involve day players, extras, and this is just an attempt to manage the perception of their professionalism. Anyway, again, another clarification point. Further, as discussed, overall the tone of the response has to be part denying the underlying insinuations and allegations, but doing so in a way that doesn't inflame or escalate further, since most of what's on the list is acknowledging and addressing. And of course, any unease on her part is paramount concern in the production, and you all are committed to working with her with the plan and execution of the next few weeks in order to complete photography, right? I'm going to send a copy internally, business affairs. So they were wondering why she was adding certain details onto her list that she had to have, right? Was she doing this so she could watch people's professionalism? Did she want more control? Was she going to analyze how people were behaving to decide later on if they had done something to, that she didn't agree with? For numbers 11 through 13, it's that she wanted to bring in Todd Black, an already like super busy producer that has 52 credits to his name in film and in movies, that would be coming into a production more than halfway through and then be given a credit. It just creates a nightmare, right? But it also adds an exorbitant amount of money that Wayfair has to pay for out of pocket. A lot of the demands she made increased the budget, increased the cost, and caused delays to the filming process. Now, they basically made it known that it was interesting that she was asking for additions and more control and like control of certain details and aspects of who's on set, who's not on set. One of the biggest burdens for Blake Lively to overcome and be successful in this lawsuit is that the timing of her quote unquote complaints to Wayfair and how that interlaid with her need for creative control at the same time, and how her protections also included more control. So she was basically using sexual harassment as a method to gain control over certain aspects of the film. Whereas before she had no control. If they said no to her, she had to accept no. And then once she had that contract signed, she no longer had to hear the words no. And that's going to be a pretty high burden for her to overcome, because a jury can look at the timing of it and say, this doesn't make sense. So I asked ChatGPT about this, and they said that sexual harassment is a legal matter, and using it as a tactic for something like creative control could raise ethical and legal concerns. It would likely backfire if proven that the claim was manipulated for personal gain, especially if the harassment was not real. Allegations of harassment are generally treated with seriousness and require substantial evidence. Misusing such claims could undermine the importance of addressing real instances of harassment and lead to legal repercussions for persons making the false claims. Blake Lively's case is going to have a really hard time being successful, especially for the sexual harassment, because first of all, she would have to prove with concrete facts and evidence that this was so severe, so pervasive, and so abusive and hostile that it left her humiliated and unable to perform her job. And the issue at hand is that she completed her work. They met, they had this conversation, they all agreed to these protections, and then everything was finished. The production ended, they did promotion, and it was over. And that there was no other issues on set, thus meaning that whatever had been happening before was no longer there again. Meaning that Wayfair and Justin and Jamie did, under the law, what they needed to do to make her comfortable and to make sure everyone on the set was safe. Once that happened, and once she admits that the production ended and everything was done, and then the film was released and it was monetarily successful, at that point, she can't really claim that the sexual harassment left her unable to perform her job, specifically because she took over editing. She did all of the marketing. We went on a successful promotional tour, even though she flubbed it and looked like a fool and made really ridiculous comments to people and downplayed domestic violence. But ultimately, she got it out. She marketed it. She was with all of her people from the set. She did all the interviews. It made a lot of money. There's no way that she'll be able to argue that there was any hostility whatsoever for months. Months from the time when the ending of the strike, or the start of the strike in June, until all the way until like December of 2024, there was nothing. There was no hostility. She'll not be able to claim that the sexual harassment wasn't addressed because, first of all, she also never went through the proper channels. So, one issue for her is that if she didn't exhaust the internal remedies within her contract as well as within the company, she's going to have a hard time succeeding in a lawsuit. So if she's required to exhaust internal remedies, so she failed to make an HR complaint, she failed to bring in the union, and she didn't do any of those things before she filed a lawsuit. She also turned down and waived the California Civil Rights Department doing a formal investigation. So she filed a CRD complaint, but she didn't ask for an investigation. In fact, she waived an investigation. So she actually didn't exhaust anything. She went from 0 to 100. And if there's no indication that she tried to resolve it within the company itself, he's going to argue that she never took the steps to address the behavior before filing the lawsuit. Also, they're going to argue that the behavior wasn't pervasive or severe enough, because what she's alleging as sexual harassment, I don't think the rational juror is going to state that this is going to meet or exceed pervasive or severe sexual harassment. First of all, there's no quid pro quo whatsoever. She's not being told that if she does something for him sexually, that she'll get something out of it. So that's out. And that the hostile work environment doesn't exist because she had all of these protections around her. So outside of the fact that she can't state a specific claim that would be like that she would get money from, their other second defense is that she lacks standing to sue. And so their biggest things are going to be, one, we didn't do anything to injure her. We fulfilled the contractual rights that we had with her and Blakel Inc. Everything was successful. The film was released. The promotion went well. The film made money. She was paid. And after the contract was over, we had no legal requirement to do anything more for Blake Lively. The biggest issue is that she is falling on this retaliation campaign, and that she wants to state that she was damaged because of the retaliation campaign. And that's going to be extremely hard for her to prove. It's going to be hard for her to prove that there wasn't an organic backlash that was created after the release of the film, and that the public wasn't naturally reacting to the way that she promoted the film. Blake's whole concept is that Justin Baldoni planted the idea in our minds that she was not marketing the film well, and that she was being frivolous, and that she was self-promoting. This wasn't something that anyone figured out on their own. He planted it, and he made content creators make videos about it, and he did it all so it was untraceable. All of that is just a bunch of words that I have no proof. It's a bunch of theories. I have no proof. The absolute biggest issue for her is that she's a public figure. She's a celebrity. And there's a public movie that's being released. She's out doing public appearances. It's her words that people are hearing and reacting to. She already has a subset of people that don't like her. The book itself is highly controversial, so it gets backlash on its own. And she will have a hard time overcoming the fact that she's a public figure, and she will be it'll be difficult to say that all of this negative publicity that she's getting is because of Justin Baldoni. Because if any of it's organic, there's no way to parse out what he planted versus what she says what was organic. And by the way, he denies he planted anything. And all of the evidence would show that he had no incentive to disparage her or harm the reputation of his film, because his studio was the one that actually put this film out and stood the most to lose or gain in the success of this film. So if he went out of his way to smear her and to like bring her down in the middle of a promotion of a film, that actually harms his studio. It hurts his bottom line. It can make his studio lose money. There's no incentive whatsoever for him to retaliate against her and start some sort of smear campaign. Jennifer Abel, his longtime publicist, Baldoni's longtime publicist, actually filed a countersuit against Stephanie Jones for a litany of horrific behaviors she endured as Stephanie's employee. Most notably, false imprisonment, because she was forced to go into a room and they took her phone and illegally searched her laptop and basically stole the contents of her phone without a subpoena and handed it over to Blake. And she outlined that when she brought in Melissa Nathan, the reason why Melissa was brought in was because the premiere of the film was coming up. People online were already starting to question where Justin Baldoni was when it came to the marketing of the film. He wasn't on any of the junkets with anyone else. He did all of his promotion alone. And then with the premiere happening, she knew that he was going to be separated from everyone. And she needed to have someone there to protect him, to protect Wayfair, and to manage the crisis that could come from this. And according to her, there were already reports that people were shopping around negative stories about Justin, his faith, and making Blake uncomfortable on set. None of this was done to smear her, but rather to protect him, to make sure that they could defensively answer press questions and keep the focus on the film and away from the mess that was the dispute between Blake and Justin. When you see it from that perspective and you understand this isn't about taking her down, but managing the crisis, it makes a lot of sense. But Blake was so hell-bent on not accepting that she had made any mistakes. So now she's bringing forth claims where she has no legal standing to sue and no claims that she can justify for relief. When you can remove yourself from the emotionalness of talking about sexual harassment or assault and look at the facts and ask yourself, does this person have the credibility that I believe what is said here? Is there evidence? Can she provide evidence? So far, she hasn't been able to provide evidence or a motive for him to be retaliatory against her. The other issue is that she waived her claims. And I actually believe that this one is the most compelling because she participated herself in a film. She promoted the project. She participated in the PR campaigns that she and her husband designed. She made money for the film, a lot of it. And then she's later suing now because of the damage that she received while she was promoting the film. They're going to argue that she willingly participated in this PR on her own. She came up with the PR strategy herself. She chose to say the words that she chose, and that the damage is because of her own participation that she willingly engaged in. If you benefit from the thing that you're suing from, you can't come. It's really hard to go to a jury and say, hey, I made $4 million on this film. I made a few mistakes while I was promoting it, and now I want more money. The other issue for the waiver of claims is that her contract states that she would take immediate action if retaliation occurred, but she didn't take immediate action. She waited 4 months from the time the promotion of the film ended to file a lawsuit, not long before a new project of hers would be announced. And she had a lot of incentive to try to clean up her image prior to another film coming out. What better way to try to bring back public sentiment and increase your PR and increase your reputation? By claiming you're a victim, by getting sympathy from people who were once ridiculing them and trying to convince them that you are actually the victim. There's a lot of issues with the strategy she's using here. And it's not even about the facts of was she harassed or was she not? It's the behavior and the legal mountains she has to climb to prove this. And I think there's two other issues here. She also has unclean hands because she engaged in behavior that they believe was immoral and unethical, and they're claiming it was extortion. So she used these strategies and these complaints to get more control and to wield power and get the film that she wanted and get the designation that she wanted. But also, there's the unjust enrichment of it. She's trying to make money off of false claims to extract more money after a film was wildly successful. The question for me is when she has had other films that have not done well and she's had issues on set, like with Rhythm Section, there was documented issues on the set with those producers. Why did she not sue those producers? Because there was no money to be made. The film bombed. But there's a financial incentive for her to sue because one, the film grossed $350 million, and there's a possibility of a sequel. She has incentive to tarnish the reputation of Justin Baldoni, which then would increase her income that she feels she wasn't paid enough or that she didn't get enough money from because she feels like she did all of this work for nothing, for no other additional money. An underlying defense of hers is that she volunteered to do extra work for no pay, thus saying, I deserve more money. So, how does she overcome the unjust enrichment of it? How does she overcome the unclean hands? How does she overcome the burden of having to prove significant retaliatory events because she's already a public figure? How does she prove that she has the legal standing to sue? She can't. And so right now, the case goes forward. But if this goes to a jury, I just don't see her winning. And it's less to do about the merits or what she has in her complaint and more to do about the facts of there are none. There's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of credibility issues for her. And she would say, well, this is being intentionally done so that I have no credibility when I blame him. No, she had credibility problems all on her own. But they don't believe she has any standing to sue, and that's why they're being so confident. And I think when you start to read through the answers, that's the number one statement I see over and over and over again. They deny the allegations. They deny the way that she describes things. They deny she was an employee. They deny they sexually harassed her. They deny they didn't accommodate her. In fact, all of the evidence shows they bent over backwards for this woman. So why then at the end would they smear her? They didn't. And that's really what Justin Baldoni's answer and Wayfair's answer revealed to me. Those are more smoking guns. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.